So clairvoyance is a possibility, but let's not get caught up in that. Even as an error of yesterday can be rectified and turned into a good action by self-effort today, the habits of the past can be overcome by appropriate self-effort. This is an important point that we should bear in mind in light of what's to come in the next chapter. The habits of the past, we are not slaves to the habits of the past. However, the notion of jivahood and of the existence and functioning of the eyes, etc., cannot be abolished except by the attainment of liberation. Till then they become alternately latent and patent. So the notion of jivahood and the existence and functioning of the eyes, this is the notion of an individual self and notions of perception. This will be a very hard one for most people to accept, that perception is only a notion. I'm sure you'll only be too willing to point out experiments which show otherwise. But really all we ever have are theories of perception. We can do experiments in perception. We can show that the eye has musculature, it operates like a lens. The light waves or the light rays are focused on the back of the eye, on the retina. Chemical reactions take place. We can demonstrate all this. And the end result of all this is an electrical signal which goes into the brain. And my question would be, well, what has that electrical signal got to do with perception? It's that electrical signal which gets transformed into the whole of the physical universe. It's what we experience as reality. It's electricity that we experience as reality. That's all we ever experience is electricity, according to the theories of perception. What's that got to do with phenomenal reality? Seems to have something to do with it, doesn't it? But so it's very difficult to accept perception is notional along with our sense of identity. Occasionally we might get some insight into this, in which case such notions become latent, we're no longer in the thrall of them. Otherwise they become patent as in patently obvious. A notion entertained by consciousness appears as the body, and this is the voraciousness of consciousness, which I mentioned previously. Consciousness voraciously identifies with notions of having a body. So much so that you might even be offended by being told otherwise, that your body is no more than notional, that your whole sensory process is no more than notional. That existence and non-existence, life and death are no more than notional, animate and inanimate. All that is going on is experiencing, and consciousness parcels up that experiencing into notions and then focuses on these notions, dresses them up, reinforces them, and then consciousness says, this is reality, and completely forgets itself. It forgets itself as the container for all these notions and for the whole process of forming these notions, a process known as the cognitive process. A notion entertained by consciousness appears as the body. It has a corresponding subtle body, Ativahika, which is also known as puryashtaka. Sometimes puryashtaka, which is the eightfold, the eight-gated city, is the physical component, and Ativahika is the subtle body which carries on after death. But here the terms are regarded as synonymous. It has a corresponding subtle body composed of mind, intellect, egosense and the 5 elements. These are the 8 factors. Mind, which is usually called the lower mind, intellect or buddhi, egosense, the sense of yourself, and the 5 elements, or the 5 senses. The self is formless, but the puryashtaka roams in this creation, in sentient and insentient bodies until it purifies itself, lives as if in deep sleep and attains liberation. We don't need to see this as a linear thing. Consciousness is doing this all the time. Consciousness is incarnating as bodies and as objects, animate and inanimate, all the time. The whole universe is an incarnation of consciousness. All the things in it are an incarnation of consciousness. Some of these things will eventually realize their nature as consciousness. So some of them will become liberated. The subtle body exists all the time, during dreams and during sleep. Well, there certainly does seem to be a body at work in dreams, doesn't there? We've got a body in dreams. We don't need to have a body in dreams. We don't need to have any senses in dreams. But we constantly experience things in dreams, don't we? We experience dreams as if our dream body is real. If I close my eyes in a dream, the visual world will disappear. Perception seems to operate in the dream body as well, doesn't it? It continues to exist in insentient bodies like inanimate objects, as if it were in deep sleep. All this is just a way of saying that consciousness is everywhere. It's omnipresent. All these are also experienced in this human body. Its deep sleep state is inert and insentient. The dream state is the experience of this creation. Its waking state is truly the transcendental turiya consciousness, and the realization of the truth is liberation. So here we've got this macrocosm, microcosm, parallelism once again. We can see in the world there are things which are inert, we classify as inert, some that we classify as sentient, and this is our experience as well. There are times we are inert, when we're in deep sleep. There are times when we are conscious, when we're awake. But most of the time we're walking around in a trance-like state, in a dream state, which we call being awake. But when we're truly awake, then we're in touch with consciousness, which is here described as turiya. This is the fourth state, beyond deep sleep, the dreaming state, and our normal waking state. And once turiya is realized, this is liberation. Turiya is just the realization of consciousness of its own nature.